This is the Mindset Game podcast, and I'm your host, James Roberts. And on today's show, I've got Virginia Coates. Virginia is now a health coach specializing in cognitive behavioral therapy, or its acronym CBT. So welcome onto the show, Virginia.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Before we delve into today's episode, Virginia, can we go back to the beginning as to where your journey began?
You can, definitely. Okay, so I've always been big into health and fitness, exercise since I was probably age of 3. I had my first tennis racket in my hand, started lessons from there. I've always done team sports, so tennis, hockey, got into running when I was 16 and started doing kind of half marathons, London Marathon, everything or anything that I could do, triathlons, etc. And loved it and still love it now. So that's kind of like the fitness element of things. Alongside that, I started kind of training as a teacher, so a primary school teacher. So I did that for 4 years at uni. And then on the back of there, obviously started teaching in schools as well. I came across a really good opportunity to be like a personal assistant for a CEO of a company in Manchester, which was for me like amazing because I never thought I'd have the opportunity to go into the business world and see how a business is ran and all the different teams within there. So that I spent kind of 18 months doing the personal assistant role and learned an awful lot. And the back of there kind of came to the end of that year and I was like, well, what is it that I'm actually passionate about? You know, what do I want to do? How am I going to be able to impact people and help others? And from there, I was like, you know what? It kind of brought me back to my roots, you know, health, fitness, and that's when I started to train as a personal trainer. And then for me, you know, the whole CBT, going into mindfulness, the mindset aspect of things is the biggest driver. Because I think obviously being a teacher, you've got that kind of coaching, mentoring background. So something that I love to use with clients and really find it helps. So yeah.
But how did CBT kind of come about for you personally?
So CBT was something that I actually experienced myself on a few occasions. So I started probably from the age of about 13, quite bad body dysmorphia. So having an athletic body throughout the whole of my childhood, I kind of hit 13, started puberty, realised, you know, looked at my own, looked at the body of the girls around me, became a lot more aware, as you do when you're at that age. And from there developed quite an unhealthy relationship with food and my own body. I started exercising loads, I started limiting what I was eating, and dropped quite a lot of weight in that time. This is probably between the period of, say, 13 and 16, and then from 16 I was going through kind of like a lot of exam pressure and still had lost a lot of weight but didn't know what to do from here. So I still wasn't happy with my body, and decided to kind of get into developed an eating disorder, bulimia, from the age of 16 to about the age of 22. So it was a good 6-year battle with bulimia, and through that I experienced CBT. So my parents found out, my friends found out, and I was kind of forced to go to the GP and explain what was going on, and they referred me to cognitive behavioral therapy. So I saw somebody first of all right at the start, so when I was 16, and as much as this person tried to help, the therapist really did try and help, I was not in the position to help myself. And all the kind of techniques, etc., nothing was going in. I wasn't taking any of the information on board. I was very much still, the eating disorder was actually becoming quite useful for me. So I wasn't, I was not ready to change at all. And then kind of a couple of years later, I tried to do things on my own. I read quite a few books, had family members that were trying to help me during that time. I'd go through periods of time, like months, weeks, where I would get better, but then I'd just completely relapse again. So then probably 2 years into that, so when I was about 17, I started like a second dose of CBT. So I went back and got referred again to a different region, and this lady was so really, really amazing. You know, she was very much similar techniques, but I was ready to change, and B, I think there was a massive passion from her which I connected with straight away. I could tell that she genuinely wanted to help. And so from there, after experiencing all that myself and knowing the benefits and really researching, after there as well, the effects of CBT, not just for eating disorders, but mental health in general, anxiety, depression, I thought, this is something that has helped me so much to get to where I am now. I need to now help people who are on this journey or have been through this journey to help them overcome their struggles. So, yeah.
And do you think it's going to be more and more of a problem this day and age, obviously, with social media being very much part of the younger generation's day-to-day life?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of exam pressure. So not only is the social media rife at the minute, but things like exams in schools are getting harder. Targets are always continuously being raised. So it feels like at the minute young people have got this pressure of not only having to look amazing because they can see all these images on social media, but also they have to, be amazing. They've got to be educated. They've got to do all these certain things that come pressure from themselves, from parents, from teachers. And it's only getting worse and worse because obviously what you see in social media, it can be so amazing. It can really, if people are out there promoting a really positive, body image and positive mindset, then it could be absolutely incredible and latch on to those people that are doing that. But then on the flip side, there's so many images that you see of these kind of perfect lives that are going on. You only see the good bits rather than the things that perhaps aren't going so well in that person's life. And when you're young and you're vulnerable and you're a young teenager, a young girl, young boy, then you're kind of looking at that. You're looking at it as a false perspective, really, of reality. And I think as long as there's people still posting all the positive things and quite unhealthy aspects of life, then things are only going to get worse. And that's where we need to there needs to be more positive role models stepping in and really sharing, real life and what it is to be, positive and healthy and really accept who you are instead.
But also, we talked about this off air. Do you think that doesn't it come back to the person taking a little bit of ownership and kind of questioning that? Why is the person only showing the good side of their life? Shouldn't there be some bad as well? Because at the end of the day, that person's still a human being.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think if you're in a position on social media, so whether it be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, if you're in a position where you have people that are following you, especially the younger generation, then you have a right to put out there, things that are realistic, things that are actually happening in day-to-day life, things like, for example, your struggles, what you've been through, and how can you connect with those younger people to help them through if they ever experience such struggles themselves. They know what to do, practical ideas and tips and useful information rather than just pictures that are promoting a certain image and a certain way that you should be. It's very much like, now I just think you have to accept who you are. We're all different. We're all born with natural talents. So actually understand what those talents are, understand what you love doing and your passions, and follow them. And don't try and kind of conform to a certain image or a certain ideal of what other people's pressure, putting on you.
I think that's a good way of looking at it, because obviously everybody in their own way is very much, how I put it, very individualistic. Not one person is, everybody is unique, and everybody is not, how I can't get my words out, but everybody is unique in their own way.
Yeah, definitely.
And recently I saw that you were at the Girls Gains, the Women Who Inspire Us event in London, to obviously discuss, as we've talked about, your battle with bulimia and body dysmorphia, and how you fell in love with fitness. What was that experience like?
Oh, it was amazing. There was probably about 100 or so young ladies, a few young gentlemen as well, mothers who had come with their daughters, and they were very much kind of open to listening to these ladies that came up. So I was one of the ladies, and there was other ones that had kind of run their own businesses, etc., giving different insights into the fitness world and what it's like to really run your own business, etc. So for me, it was fantastic to kind of share my story and really connect with the audience. There were so many people that came up to me afterwards saying, asking questions about, how did your parents deal with it, and what did your school do, and practical questions that people just are too afraid to ask. And it was lovely to be able to answer those in just a very genuine, calm environment. Nothing was worrying for anyone. It was very relaxed. So yeah, it was lovely. Really enjoyed it.
And how did the opportunity come about?
So I work with a lady called Victoria, who's part of the Girl Games. So two of them are obviously based down in London, and Vic's up here in Manchester. So I work with her. We personal train together. And we have a very similar story in terms of Vic's eating disorder as well, and her battle with anorexia that she went through. And we connected and we shared our stories, and from there we saw, we had mutual interests and mutual ways of looking at the world now because we'd been through those struggles.
And what would be kind of some of your tips for anybody listening to this episode as to what they should do to maybe overcome their, I won't say it's a problem, but their mental state and kind of mindset they're in at the moment?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of it comes down to acceptance. When I finally started to accept who I was and the things that I loved and the things that I was good at, that's when things really started to change. And your acceptance comes from actually spending time on yourself. So having areas hours in your day or half an hour a day of having self-development time, of reading a book that you're interested in, of listening to a podcast that you're interested in, something that you can do, whether it be maybe a bit of mindfulness, maybe it's writing, like journaling, doing gratitude journals, etc. Just having time to think about you, because I think quite a lot of the time, especially now with social media, people get swept away in what's going on all the time and the images that they see elsewhere, and it's really about just thinking like, who am I and what do I want from life? Where do I want to go? Because I came to a point in my life, especially in my eating disorder, when I knew that this was not going to get me to my goals. And I'm massively into goal setting. So, I've got books worth of goals, massive goals that if I read them out, you'd think I was delusional. But I truly believe that they'll manifest because I've written them down and I'm working towards them unintentionally every single day of my life. And so, yeah, goal setting is massive to get into. And that's part of the self-development, reflecting and really thinking, how am I going to impact on the world from here? What my passion is and how am I going to take small steps to where I want to go? What's the end goal? What's the end vision?
And this would be probably a poignant question to ask you. I had Professor Andy Lane on, it's going to be early on in the podcast. He was talking about, obviously, emotions and kind of other people sometimes put their own emotions on a certain individual because they want to get them to do well, if we look at it from the fitness perspective. But kind of from your perspective, do you see that sometimes that can be overbearing when somebody has a problem with body dysmorphia and things like that? Because, okay, the family member has the right intentions, but do you think it can be kind of too overbearing sometimes?
I think, to be honest, everyone deals with these kind of situations very differently. So in terms of, like, for example, my parents dealt with my eating disorder very, very differently. So my mum would get very upset about it. And that was her way of dealing with the situation. She'd cry, she just couldn't understand it. Neither of them could. My dad would get very angry. He just didn't understand why I couldn't just snap out of it. It's very, very different. And it's all kind of coping mechanisms. At the end of the day, you have to kind of work together, and this is why communication is so key. So even that person who is suffering, whether with whatever mental disorder it might be, you need to try to, even if it takes a long time, months, maybe, years, you have just got to be there for that person and support them and be ready to listen for when they're ready to talk. And try and pick up on any kind of telltale signs that they give away, anything that changes their mood, might make them slightly happier, grasp onto that and really, really use that, and do activities that they enjoy to make them feel better and put them in a better kind of state of mind.
And then I've got another analogy that I've brought up in another episode about the mindset that people with bulimia, anorexia, and things like that have, and you kind of put it in. If you put it into a sporting context of the person's, how would I put it, well-being, and they don't have an identity. But I think I worded it as to you kind of detach yourself from the problem and think, well, it's kind of, I don't have it. Kind of thing, and it's kind of do you believe to be it's how would I put this, kind of like an out of body experience? You think can you kind of see from a certain aspect that you believe you don't have a problem, but then on the other hand you think you do?
Yeah, so during that time when I had bulimia, I would say like I was like two people. It was the weirdest thing, and when I look back now, I just think, wow, I would go into this, I'd constantly lie, like I would try and hide things. It's a very secretive disease. I wrote a blog post not long ago now about bulimia, the dirty disorder people don't talk about, because there's so much dishonesty to it. There's so many opportunities for you to be able to lie about it. And so it was kind of like I obviously during this time I was still working, I was still playing sport to a high level, I was doing everything that I wanted to do, but in the background I still had this massive secret that was holding me back. And it's a similar thing with any eating disorder and any really mental health, and that's why mental health is so key, that we try and get it across to people that people are suffering. You walk down the street, people are suffering, but you will never know, because they will hide it from you, because there it's that like two-person thing going on, and it's the most distressing thing, because in your head, from me at that time, I hated being two different people. I couldn't believe that I could be this one person that was doing really well in sport, really well in education, was kind of getting all the goals that she wanted to get, but then on the flip side knew that I was not accessing my full potential because there was something holding me back the whole time. It's definitely a kind of a two-person battle, and it's a horrific place to be in. So as soon as you can break that, really release yourself and see kind of what it all comes down again to, this like that vision, like where do you want to be in the end result? Like what are you aiming towards? What's your life when you get to like the end of your life? Where do you want to be? And if you ask yourself that question and you really, really plan it out, then you know that there's nothing can get in your way, and the eating disorders are something that is going to get in your way and going to hold you back massively.
But in terms of looking where you want to be later on in your life, how would you go about that? Because to a certain extent, some people might think they might have a goal, like of having more money, but that's, to a certain extent, that's a bit superficial.
Yeah, so well, if you look at like kind of my journey so far, I've done various different things. So obviously I've gone from teaching to being a personal assistant to being a personal trainer. I kind of assess my vision as this. My vision is to impact as many people as I possibly can, and to create the best version of everybody that I kind of come into contact with. So that's my like overall vision. And it doesn't matter, what job I'm doing. It doesn't matter what I'm doing, kind of, the official role, as long as I know that every single day that's my vision, that's what I'm going to drive towards, then I'll accomplish it. As long as I'm doing everything, every day to get to that point, then it's fine. It doesn't need to be, right, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to get that job to be able to, get to that position. It's not like that. It's literally, you go and do what you're passionate about today, and how are you going to get that to that vision? And yeah, that's the way forwards. Keep striving towards your goal.
But if you reflect kind of on the career path that you've taken, and kind of look at it as a whole, do you think you've taken kind of bits from every kind of workplace and kind of molded it into the person you are now and kind of the business you run now?
100%, yeah. So I think I always say, like, I'm always a teacher at heart. So for me, I'll always be into coaching and mentoring people. That's my passion. That's where I know that I can make the most impact by seeing people develop and helping them, guidance wise. And that's come from teaching. Obviously, from personal assistant role, it was the aspects that I got from running a business. And then personal training, again, it's like a coaching style role. So yes, and moving forwards, I want to be kind of like public speaking, sharing health, fitness, and helping people to overcome their mental health issues. So yeah, I guess I've really taken an aspect of every element that I've kind of been through. Life is a journey, and the thing is, like, you're on a journey. Pick up as much information as you can, share as much information as you can, and good things will only come back to you if you just keep giving them out.
And then what's your thought on how do I word this now? We talk about, obviously, in our industry about consistency, but isn't that looking at it, if we delve in it, looking at it from the mental aspect, isn't that looking at being too perfectionist at some point? Whereas we kind of bash, like when you're looking at being too random, you kind of up and down with things. But shouldn't it be a case of, if we look more so at the nutrition side of things, a little bit of a mixture of the two?
Yeah, so I guess, you don't want to be so rigid that you're having the same kind of foods every single day, and life gets very boring, and that's where the perfectionism comes in, and actually is going to take a negative slant on what you're doing every day. But again, so for example, you've got to have a bit of flexibility in the things that you're doing, a bit of responding to things that go. So you can wake up in the morning and you don't know what that day is going to hold for you. You know that you've got a plan. Okay, so you might have an agenda of, right, I've got these clients, I'm going to do this, in the afternoon I want to go and play hockey or play tennis at this. So you can have like a basic outline, but then sometimes a curveball will come and you've got to think, right, okay, how am I going to deal with this? If you go through your life not being able to deal with the curveballs, you're not going to get very far, because these are the obstacles that you need to just keep plowing through. So for example, like nutrition wise, you might have planned out a whole week's worth of perfect nutrition. You've got your breakfast, your lunches, your dinners, your snacks, all organized, all sorted, all prepped. And then you realize that it's your mum's birthday on Friday night. Okay, that's a curveball, but you just deal with it. And you go and you choose an option that's healthy for you, that makes you feel good. And yeah, so you have to be. It's all about planning, preparation, consistency, but then also having that flexibility. The ability to be flexible when curveballs are thrown at you.
And kind of, it's like a side note for this one. What kind of side of the fence do you reside? Are you very much a person that meal preps in advance, or are you very much somebody that does flexible dieting?
I meal prep. Guilty. Yeah, no, definitely do. I think because I have the job that I have, so I'm up very, very early, 4:30 most mornings, and I work through until lunchtime, and then I have a tiny gap, and then I tend to work and do my own thing in the afternoon. So for me, just having the food already prepped is perfect. I'll have my breakfast, I'll usually have the same thing, then I'll have my lunch is prepped, and then dinners I try to vary those up. So I'm not super prepped with dinners. That's usually just like protein, carbs, fats, something simple. But yeah, at the weekend I'm slightly more flexible. I'll get to kind of a Friday night, Saturday night, I might have a glass of wine, I might have a bit of dark chocolate, might go crazy. But yeah, no, I generally do prep, but that's what makes me feel good. It makes me feel on top of my game. It makes me know that I'm always going to achieve good things from being organized that way. So, yeah.
But what would your advice be for somebody that thinks that's a bit how would I put it, be tactful? It can be quite overbearing at times, something like that. I'm very much I can't do it, and that's my personal experience and kind of personal view on it. I can do probably meal prep. I don't know, it'd probably be like 2 days or something like that, and it would be, oh no, this is too taxing. But what would be your kind of advice for somebody what would be the easiest way to start, in your opinion? Which way would you kind of lean towards?
To be honest, like it all depends on your goals. Okay, so what is it that you want in terms of, like your body, your nutrition, your health? If you want to look a certain way, if you want to fuel yourself a certain way, if you're doing competitive sport and you need to have the certain foods in your diet, then obviously, prepping is key. For me, I do a lot of CrossFit still, so I need to make sure I'm fueled adequately with that. And I generally stick to the same kind of like sport routine throughout each week. So therefore, if I'm sticking to that sport routine, gym routine, then therefore why would I not stick to that similar type of eating pattern as well? It works for me. It gives me energy. I feel great. So yeah, I'd say start small. Like if you're only just hopping onto the nutrition bandwagon, then start small, make some tiny habits. Whether you are maybe you're one of those people that don't eat breakfast every day. So start with a small habit. Well, what can I have for breakfast every day? Right, let's start there. Or maybe you go through long periods of time without having any food. You might give like more than 4 hours, don't have any snacks. So what snacks can I have during the day? Just very small habits. Don't kind of throw yourself in there all at once, because you'll get overwhelmed and you probably won't stick to it.
And then, I've lost my train of thought. That's not good. But if we kind of go back on what you've said and how I interpret it, it sounds like you very much have kind of that athlete mentality. It's very much everything looks like it's periodized, be it training, nutrition, lifestyle. It sounds very much regimented to that kind of lifestyle.
Yeah, I guess in a way that it is. Obviously, I said weekends are a little bit more flexible, but I think it's because I'm a creature of habit and I like routine. Obviously, I've learned to be a lot more flexible now than I ever used to be, and I can respond to more things better than I ever used to be able to as well. But the thing is, like, you have to find out what works for you. Okay, so, and it's all trial and error. So I've been through years of trialing and error. I've been through an eating disorder. I know what is wrong and what is not healthy. And, and now having gone through all that, I know what works for my body. I'm very much in tune with my body and my mind, and that's come from kind of years of working with it, but hence why I want to be able to share all this and stop people from having to worry too much about it, and kind of give them a bit of a shortcut into this is how you can feel great and feel healthy. So,
and then what I'll do with this bit, I'll tweak it a little bit when editing. Do you still want to talk about your online course?
Yeah, that's okay. Good.
How would where would you tie it in within the episode?
Maybe just at the end, just kind of say like, where can you find your social, or like, what are you doing at the minute to like tell us about your online course. I don't know, like, what are you doing at the minute to help people in the kind of like mindset way?
Okay.
Perhaps. Yeah.
So, and in this part of the episode, I like to, when I wrap it up, I like to ask the guests, if you had to summarize this episode in one sentence, what would that be?
That's a good question. I would say it's been an episode of very interesting questions. I tell you, curveballs have been thrown my way, but hopefully I've overcome them. But yeah, no, challenging questions, but good. Definitely put me on the spot. Made me thought a lot. Enjoyed it.
Well, thanks, Virginia, for taking the time to come on the show.
You're welcome. It's been great. Thanks for having me.
And last question before we let you go: have you got any plans, obviously, going forward with your online side of your business?
Yeah, 100%. So I'm just in the process now of putting together an online course, like modules. So the first module coming out is going to be mindfulness to overcome anxiety. It's basically an ability for people to kind of log on, and they can buy the course, they can tap into it. It's an hour and a half, and literally go through different activities they can do. So that's very much niche towards anxiety. From there, there'll be other courses coming out as well, specifically for eating disorders, depression, and other mental health things to help you with your mindset. So yeah, exciting
And where can
times.
people find that information?
Yeah, so I'm mainly over social media, so Virginia_Coates for Instagram, Facebook as well, and Twitter. And I also have a website, which is www.virginiacoates.com.
So, well, it was great having you on the podcast, as I said before.
Thank you.
And for everybody else, this podcast will be aired every week. So until next time, I will see you guys soon.